As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the sprawling stadium, anticipation hung thick in the air. Amongst the sea of cheering fans and flashing cameras stood Alex Morgan, a rookie sensation poised to make his debut on the grand stage of professional basketball. For Alex, this wasn't just a game, it was the culmination of years of sacrifice and determination. Raised in the heart of the city, basketball was more than a sport, it was a way of life. With a father who had once graced the same court, Alex carried the weight of expectations on his broad shoulders. Stepping onto the court, Alex felt a surge of adrenaline course through his veins. The roar of the crowd washed over him like a tidal wave, fueling his resolve. As the game unfolded, Alex's raw talent shone brightly, drawing the attention of fans and scouts alike, but beneath the veneer of excitement lurked shadows of doubt. Whispers of performance-enhancing drugs and under-the-table deals tainted the purity of the sport, casting a pall over Alex's meteoric rise. Yet, amidst the chaos, Alex remained steadfast, determined to prove his worth on his own terms. The stage was set for a showdown of epic proportions as two titans of the sporting world prepared to face off. On one side stood David Santiago, a veteran known for his unrivaled skill and unwavering integrity. On the other, Alex Morgan, the brash newcomer whose ascent had been nothing short of meteoric. As the game commenced, tensions ran high, with each possession carrying the weight of an entire season. For David, this was more than just another match, it was a chance to cement his legacy and silence the doubters once and for all. But for Alex, it was an opportunity to prove that he belonged amongst the elite. As the clock ticked down, the score remained deadlocked, with neither side willing to concede an inch. But in the dying moments of the game, fate intervened, delivering a twist that would change the course of both men's lives forever. In the aftermath of the titanic clash between David Santiago and Alex Morgan, whispers of deception began to circulate through the hallowed halls of the sporting world. Rumors swirled like a tempest, casting doubt on the integrity of the game and the players who graced its stage. For Alex, the accusations cut deeper than any physical blow. He had poured his heart and soul into his craft, sacrificing blood, sweat, and tears to reach the pinnacle of success. But now, his achievements were tarnished by insinuations of foul play, threatening to undo everything he had worked so hard to achieve. Meanwhile, David Santiago found himself caught in the crossfire, his reputation hanging in the balance. As a veteran of the sport, he had always prided himself on his commitment to fair play and sportsmanship. But now, his name was being dragged through the mud, his legacy hanging by a thread. Amidst the chaos, the sporting community grappled with the harsh reality of the situation. For years, they had placed their faith in the integrity of the game, believing that victory was earned through skill and dedication alone. But now, that faith had been shattered, replaced by a sense of disillusionment and mistrust. As the investigation into the allegations began, the true extent of the deception began to unravel, revealing a tangled web of lies and deceit. But amidst the darkness, a glimmer of hope remained, as the players and fans alike rallied together in search of the truth, determined to restore honor to the game they loved. With the spotlight glaring down upon them, Alex Morgan and David Santiago found themselves thrust into the heart of a media frenzy. Reporters clamored for interviews, seeking to uncover the truth behind the scandal that had rocked the sporting world to its core. For Alex, the scrutiny was relentless. Every word he spoke was dissected and analyzed, every action scrutinized for signs of guilt or innocence. He felt like a puppet on strings, dancing to the whims of an audience hungry for scandal and sensation. Meanwhile, David Santiago retreated into the shadows, his once proud demeanor overshadowed by the weight of the allegations against him. Gone was the swagger of a champion, replaced by the haunted gaze of a man grappling with his own demons. As the investigation gathered steam, the true motives behind the scandal began to surface, revealing a dark underbelly of corruption and greed. It seemed that no one was immune to the allure of power and prestige, not even the most revered figures in the sporting world. But amidst the chaos, a flicker of hope remained. For every scandal that tarnished the reputation of the game, there were countless individuals who still believed in the power of sport to inspire and uplift. And as the truth slowly came to light, they vowed to stand together in defiance of those who sought to tear it down. The pressure mounted as the investigation into the scandal intensified, pushing both Alex Morgan and David Santiago to their breaking points. For Alex, the constant scrutiny and relentless accusations began to take a toll on his mental and physical health. Sleep eluded him, replaced by a relentless cycle of anxiety and doubt. Each day felt like a battle for his sanity, and the joy he once found in the game seemed to slip further away. David, on the other hand, faced a different kind of torment. He wrestled with the realization that his impeccable reputation might be permanently tainted. The weight of his past achievements and the legacy he hoped to leave behind now felt like a burden too heavy to bear. He found himself questioning everything he had ever believed about honor and integrity in sports. As the investigation reached its climax, shocking revelations came to light. The scandal was far more extensive than anyone had imagined, implicating not just players but also coaches, sponsors, and even league officials. The scope of the corruption was staggering, shaking the very foundations of the sport. In the midst of the turmoil, Alex found an unexpected ally in Sarah Jenkins, a tenacious investigative journalist who was determined to uncover the truth. Sarah had always believed in the power of sports to bring people together, and she was deeply disillusioned by the scandal. But she saw in Alex a glimmer of hope, a young athlete who still believed in the purity of the game. Together, Alex and Sarah began to piece together the puzzle, uncovering a trail of evidence that led them closer to the heart of the corruption. It was a dangerous path, fraught with threats and intimidation, but they were driven by a shared conviction that the truth must come to light. As Alex and Sarah delved deeper into their investigation, they uncovered a series of damning documents and testimonies that exposed the full extent of the corruption. They discovered a network of illicit dealings and backroom agreements, orchestrated by powerful figures who had long operated in the shadows. These revelations sent shockwaves through the sporting world, turning fans and insiders alike into fervent seekers of justice. Amidst the mounting evidence, Alex began to confront his own fears and doubts. He realized that the scandal was not just an external force threatening his career, but a test of his own character and resilience. The support of his family, friends, and teammates became his anchor, reminding him of the values he held dear. Sarah, too, found herself changed by the journey. The lines between journalist and advocate blurred as she became more deeply invested in the cause. Her determination to reveal the truth was fueled not just by professional ambition, but by a genuine desire to cleanse the sport she loved from the taint of corruption. As they gathered their evidence and prepared to go public, the stakes grew higher. The powerful individuals implicated in the scandal were not about to go down without a fight. Alex and Sarah faced threats and intimidation, but their resolve only strengthened. They knew that they were on the cusp of a breakthrough that could change the landscape of the sport forever. The day of reckoning arrived as Alex and Sarah prepared to present their findings to the world. They scheduled a press conference, ensuring that the evidence they had gathered would be seen by as many people as possible. The anticipation was palpable, with media outlets and fans eagerly awaiting the revelations. As the press conference began, Alex took a deep breath and stepped up to the podium. His hands trembled slightly, but his voice was steady as he began to speak. He recounted the journey that had brought him to this moment, the highs and lows, the challenges and triumphs. He spoke from the heart, imploring the world to see beyond the scandal and remember the true spirit of the game. Sarah followed, presenting the evidence with meticulous care. She laid bare the web of corruption, naming names and revealing the intricate connections that had enabled the deceit to flourish. The room was silent, the weight of the revelation sinking in as the truth unfolded. As the press conference concluded, the reactions were immediate and intense. The sporting community was rocked by the scale of the scandal, with calls for accountability and reform echoing across the globe. The powerful figures implicated in the corruption scrambled to defend themselves, but the tide had turned. For Alex and Sarah, the battle was far from over. They knew that exposing the truth was only the first step in a long journey towards restoring integrity to the sport. But as they stood together, facing the flashing cameras and the cacophony of voices, they felt a renewed sense of hope. The darkness had been exposed, and now, the healing could begin. The fallout from the press conference was swift and far-reaching. Headlines blazed with the details of the scandal, and social media buzzed with debates and outrage. Fans who had once idolized the players and institutions involved now felt a deep sense of betrayal. The sport's reputation was in tatters, and trust was a scarce commodity. Alex Morgan found himself at the center of a storm. Despite his efforts to expose the corruption, many people were skeptical, wondering if his motives were truly pure or if he was seeking to deflect blame. Everywhere he went, he was met with mixed reactions. Some hailed him as a hero, while others cast him as a villain. The pressure weighed heavily on Alex, but he refused to back down. He continued to speak out, participating in interviews and attending public forums to answer questions and share his story. His honesty and vulnerability began to sway public opinion, slowly but surely rebuilding his image. David Santiago, however, chose a different path. Overwhelmed by the scrutiny and the tarnishing of his legacy, he retreated from the public eye. He spent his days in quiet contemplation, wrestling with feelings of anger and betrayal. He had dedicated his life to the sport, only to see it crumble under the weight of deceit. While Alex and David navigated their personal struggles, the broader sporting community grappled with the implications of the scandal. Sponsors withdrew their support, tournaments faced boycotts, and officials scrambled to implement reforms. The integrity of the game was under siege, and drastic measures were needed to restore faith. As the investigation continued, more individuals and organizations were drawn into the scandal. Coaches, managers, and league officials were implicated, their careers and reputations hanging by a thread. The ripple effects of the revelations were felt far and wide, extending beyond the confines of the sport itself. For the players, the consequences were particularly harsh. Many found themselves under suspicion, their every move scrutinized for signs of guilt. Friendships were strained, and team dynamics were disrupted as trust became a rare commodity. The camaraderie that had once defined the sport was replaced by an atmosphere of suspicion and fear. The fans, too, bore the brunt of the scandal. For many, the sport had been a source of joy and inspiration, a respite from the challenges of everyday life. Now, that source of comfort was tainted, leaving them disillusioned and disheartened. Attendance at games plummeted, and merchandise sales dwindled as supporters distanced themselves from the sport they once loved. In the midst of the turmoil, Alex and Sarah continued their quest for justice. They knew that exposing the truth was only the first step. Meaningful change required sustained effort and vigilance. They worked tirelessly to advocate for reforms, pushing for greater transparency and accountability within the sport. Despite the challenges, there were glimmers of hope. Some teams and organizations embraced the call for change, implementing new policies and practices to ensure fairness and integrity. Young athletes, inspired by Alex's courage, stepped forward to share their own stories, determined to build a better future for the sport. Alex's journey had been one of constant struggle and resilience, but as he stood on the precipice of a new chapter, he realized that true change often required standing alone. The support he had garnered from fans and allies was invaluable, but the fight for integrity was a personal battle that demanded unwavering conviction. Facing intense scrutiny and mounting pressure, Alex made a bold decision. He chose to step away from the sport, at least temporarily, to focus on advocating for systemic reform. He believed that his influence could be more powerful off the court, where he could work to dismantle the structures that had allowed corruption to flourish. This decision was met with mixed reactions. Some hailed it as a noble sacrifice, while others viewed it as a capitulation. Alex understood the risks, but he was driven by a vision of a sport untainted by deceit, where athletes could compete on a level playing field. He knew that the road ahead would be long and arduous, but he was prepared to walk it alone if necessary. Sarah, too, faced her own crossroads. Her work with Alex had reignited her passion for investigative journalism, and she was determined to continue exposing corruption and championing the truth. Together, they formed a formidable team, their partnership built on mutual respect and a shared commitment to justice. As Alex and Sarah pushed forward, their efforts began to yield tangible results. The evidence they had gathered prompted further investigations, leading to high-profile arrests and resignations. The once untouchable figures who had orchestrated the corruption were finally being held accountable. Public sentiment shifted as well. The narrative began to change from one of despair to one of hope and resilience. Fans rallied behind the calls for reform, and the sport's governing bodies were forced to implement sweeping changes. New regulations were introduced to ensure transparency, and independent oversight committees were established to monitor compliance. The tipping point came when a group of veteran athletes, inspired by Alex's courage, publicly endorsed his campaign for reform. Their collective voice lent weight to the movement, signaling a new era of accountability and integrity in the sport. It was a watershed moment, marking the beginning of a transformative journey. Despite these victories, Alex knew that the fight was far from over. The road to lasting change was paved with challenges, and there would always be those who sought to undermine progress. But he remained steadfast in his commitment, driven by the belief that the sport could emerge stronger and more resilient from the ashes of scandal. The repercussions of the scandal reverberated far and wide, reshaping the landscape of the sport in profound ways. Teams and organizations underwent significant restructuring, with new leadership committed to upholding the principles of fairness and integrity. Sponsorships returned, albeit cautiously, as brands aligned themselves with the renewed vision of the sport. The athletes, too, felt the impact. Those who had been involved in the corruption faced bans and suspensions, their careers tarnished by their actions. But for the majority who had played the game with honor, there was a renewed sense of purpose and camaraderie. They were determined to rebuild the sport's reputation and prove that its true essence could not be corrupted. Fans slowly returned to the stadiums, their faith in the sport cautiously restored. The games took on a new significance, serving as a testament to the resilience and integrity of those who had fought for change. Each victory and defeat was celebrated not just for the score, but for what it represented, a triumph of honesty and fair play. For Alex, the journey was deeply personal. He had sacrificed much in his quest for justice, but he found solace in the knowledge that his efforts had sparked a movement. He continued to advocate for reform, working with governing bodies and athletes to ensure that the lessons of the past were not forgotten. As the sport began to heal, stories of redemption emerged, offering a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness. Athletes who had been implicated in the scandal sought to make amends, dedicating themselves to community service and mentorship programs. They shared their experiences with young athletes, emphasizing the importance of integrity and the consequences of deceit. David Santiago, once a symbol of the sport's corruption, embarked on his own path to redemption. He publicly acknowledged his mistakes and committed to using his platform to advocate for change. His journey was met with skepticism, but over time, he proved that genuine remorse and a willingness to change could pave the way for forgiveness. The narrative of the sport shifted from one of scandal to one of resilience and renewal. The games were infused with a new sense of purpose, as athletes competed not just for glory, but for the honor of upholding the principles that had been fought for so fiercely. The sport's governing bodies implemented rigorous oversight mechanisms, ensuring that the mistakes of the past would not be repeated. For Alex, the glare of redemption was a powerful motivator. He saw the impact of his efforts in the smiles of young athletes who could now dream of a future untainted by corruption. He knew that the fight for integrity was ongoing, but he was encouraged by the progress that had been made. Despite the progress, shadows of doubt lingered. Skeptics questioned whether the reforms would truly bring about lasting change, or if the sport would eventually revert to its old ways. The fear of relapse was ever present, a reminder that vigilance was necessary to protect the gains that had been made. Alex grappled with these doubts, aware that the battle for integrity was far from over. He continued to advocate for transparency and accountability, working to ensure that the reforms were not just superficial gestures, but meaningful changes that would stand the test of time. He knew that the journey was ongoing, and that complacency was the enemy of progress. Sarah, too, remained vigilant. She continued her work as an investigative journalist, determined to expose any signs of backsliding. Her commitment to the truth was unwavering, and she used her platform to hold those in power accountable. Together, she and Alex formed a formidable duo, united by their shared vision of a sport free from corruption. The broader sporting community also played a crucial role in safeguarding the progress that had been made. Fans, athletes, and officials alike understood the importance of maintaining the integrity of the game. They remained watchful, ready to speak out against any signs of wrongdoing and to support efforts to uphold the principles of fair play. In the years that followed, the sport gradually regained its former glory, but with a renewed sense of purpose and integrity. The scandal, once a dark stain on its history, became a catalyst for positive change, reshaping the culture and values of the game. Alex Morgan emerged as a revered figure, not just for his athletic prowess, but for his unwavering commitment to integrity and reform. He returned to the court, but his influence extended far beyond his performance in the games. He became a mentor and advocate, inspiring a new generation of athletes to uphold the highest standards of sportsmanship. Sarah Jenkins continued her work as a journalist, her stories shining a light on the ongoing efforts to maintain transparency and accountability. Her partnership with Alex remained strong, their shared mission a testament to the power of collaboration in the pursuit of justice. The sport itself thrived, its reputation restored through the efforts of those who had fought so hard for change. It became a symbol of resilience and renewal, a reminder that even in the face of corruption, the true spirit of the game could prevail. As the final whistle blew on yet another thrilling match, Alex stood on the sidelines, a sense of fulfillment washing over him. The journey had been long and arduous, but it had been worth every struggle and sacrifice. The sport he loved had been saved, not by any one person, but by the collective efforts of a community that believed in the power of integrity. And as the crowd erupted in cheers, celebrating not just a victory, but the triumph of honesty and fair play, Alex knew that the future was bright. Beyond the scandal, beyond the shadows of doubt, lay a legacy of resilience and hope, a legacy that would endure for generations to come.